Well, welcome everybody to this February 2nd training session. Our facilitator this morning is Ruth Schmidt. She's a member of three clubs, Pioneer Club and Vineyard in District 11, and also the Speak Up Club in District 27. Using her own words here, she considers herself to be an emerging evaluator. She has degrees in quite a few degrees, engineering, business administration, as well as credentials in project management, program management, and computer security. Her career took her from engineering to information technology to business. Currently, she's a pricing economist at the Postal Service. She has enjoyed researching and collaborating with great Toastmaster evaluators to prepare this speech and presentation and guided discussion. She will be speaking from a slideshow and there will be a discussion period thereafter. So please help me welcome Ruth Schmidt, How to Manage a Hybrid Evaluation Contest.
Hi, fellow Toastmasters. Happy Hedgehog Day. You thought it was Groundhog Day. Well, many years ago, it was Hedgehog Day. The problem with hedgehogs is one day they decided to start making speeches on Hedgehog Day, and hedgehogs have thousands of spines. So they got up and said, "Meet Harry the Hedgehog," and Harry started squirming and it hurt the speaker. Eddie the evaluator came along and said, "We can't have props that hurt you. How about if we use Gary the Groundhog instead?" Fellow Toastmaster and guests, meet Gary the Groundhog. He just saw his shadow today, so now we'll be having 6 more weeks of winter. I'd like you to put names in the chat box about your favorite evaluator. It doesn't have to be a speech, just put whoever helped you and gave an evaluation. Maybe it was music, cooking, sports. We'll come back to those names in the chat box later. Next slide, please. The timeline slide. Yep, great. A hybrid evaluation contest has participants online and on site. Other than that, it's just like an evaluation contest. The first thing that happens is a test speaker speaks for 5 to 7 minutes. This is the speech everyone will evaluate. Then the evaluation contestants are sequestered. They are allowed 5 minutes to prepare their evaluation. After that, each evaluator is invited back into the contest room when it is time to give their 2 to 3 minute evaluation. At the end, judging and interviewing proceed as usual for a contest. Next slide, please. When the test speaker is speaking, everyone is listening, both the evaluation contestants and the judges. They are looking at the speaker to report what they see. They are hearing the speaker to report what they are hearing, and they are being moved by the speech. These skills of active listening are the same as leadership skills. The 5 minutes for the evaluators is a time for them to prepare to give that evaluation speech. The champion evaluators use this time to rehearse the speech in their head. Evaluator contestants are allowed to take notes during the 5 minute period. But is taking notes the best way to rehearse your speech? You can decide. Then it's time to give your evaluation speech. The evaluation speech is like any speech. It has an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. Next slide, please. These are the elements in the speech that you will be judged on. You will be judged on your analysis of the speech. What did you see, hear, and feel? Your recommendations, are they pertinent to the speech just given? Are they prioritized? Are they what the speaker can work on in their next speech? The speaker is saying, meet me where I'm at. That means they want a recommendation they can work on and accept and put into their next speeches. They want a hand up. This begins to come to the approach. Can we read a few of the names in the chat box, please? Okay, well, maybe they're in your head and not in the...
We've got Alan Shaner, Ed Zworbach. Oh, sorry, that's not about. Sorry, Michelle Laban, Dr. Erwin Mueller, Adam Simon, Jim Stewart, Richard Gilliatt, Rick Holtmeyer, Carol Cross, Tom Hochstetter, Sam Bristol, Teresa Gotthard.
Thank you.
Sure.
So I want you to think about how these evaluators made you feel. Each of them gave you an authentic evaluation, their opinion, and you might hear a different evaluation from a different person, but these were the evaluators that meant something to you. That's what we're talking about when we talk about the approach. The approach is an element you will be judged upon. In the timing of your speech, you must make a summation of your speech, summing up your analysis recommendations. You should be starting this when the green card comes and finish it at the end of your time limit. Next slide. Great evaluators practice for months ahead of the evaluation contest. They do this by practicing speaking impromptu or speaking as a prepared speech, because the evaluation is a combination of the skills for impromptu and prepared speaking. They develop an evaluation template that is in their heads. It might match an evaluation template that is published by Toastmasters, or it might be just what they found worked for them. It's in their heads, so they don't need to worry about the fact that the note-taking form is basically a blank sheet of paper. Because it's in their heads, they can quickly use the template to structure the speech. They also practice evaluation speeches, evaluating speeches. They evaluate speeches in Toastmasters. Even when they're not asked to be the evaluator, you can still evaluate a speech. Likely, the speaker wants to hear from you if you've taken the trouble to make an evaluation. Evaluators make self-evaluations of their speeches. The self-evaluation is very important because only you know what you wanted to say. And only you know if the audience got that message. They also practice speeches they hear in other places, on the internet, on TV, at work. You can evaluate any speech, or if it's too long, just take 5 minutes of the speech. Next slide, please. So this is my summation of my speech. I've spoken about the hybrid evaluation contest, mostly to the view of the contestant. I hope this helps you if you're a contest functionary or judge to serve the contestants. The first step in the hybrid evaluation contest is a test speaker. The test speaker must be heard by everyone. So if you decide to have an online speaker, you must make sure that speaker is heard. If something happens, it's probably best to be prepared with an alternate test speaker. The same goes for judges. You do not want to fall below your minimum number of judges because of technical difficulties with online judges. The 5-minute sequester room must be provided both in the in-person and hybrid format. The in-person and online format. And of course, evaluation contestants are participating either online or on-site. How can you win? You can practice and you can keep trying. I hope you have fun. Next slide, please. I've given some of the sources I used for my speech. I know we can all learn a lot more about the hybrid contest because we will be having international and humorous hybrid contests here in District 11. I used the resources updated for this contest year. The speech contest rulebook, the online and hybrid speech contest best practices. You can have a club evaluation contest every year if you want to. We don't have to have a district contest for you to have a club evaluation contest. You can go to other districts and see their virtual or hybrid evaluation contests. I found an evaluation contest workshop very helpful. This was given by a Canadian district featuring an Indian district speaker. On YouTube, I found Aaron Beverly's self-evaluations of his international speech contest speeches to be very helpful. I'd like to move now to our discussion question. Next slide. How will your club, area, division, or district prepare for the hybrid evaluation contest? I underlined all but club because the club may have the evaluation contest in their desired format. It's the area, division, and district that must correspond to the district decision to have a hybrid contest. Remember, together everyone achieves more. I hope to hear from you right now with your ideas. Any ideas? Any?
If I may interject for a minute, Ruth, this is done in anticipation of the expectation that next year's contest one of the contests will be a hybrid will be an evaluation contest that will likely be hybrid for the district. So this was in preparation for that. And also, I would say, to express the disappointment of some that we aren't doing it this year. But we felt at the time that our area directors were not really well prepared enough for the special requirements of an evaluation contest, especially in a hybrid format. So she really wants your answers to the question: what special things will you all be doing for your area division or district hybrid evaluation contests?
Rick, this is Sam Bristol. And Ruth, this is Sam Bristol. I'm going back to when we first, I guess it's been 2021, which is the first year we actually had to have online contests. And I was impressed the way Division E handled things. They practice from the area and division. Mark Walton was the division director that year for Division E. They practice among themselves. And I thought they did a very nice job with where their contests were done. So I think that's part of the key thing for anyone, just to practice at various levels.
One thing I've noticed in District 27, we're having virtual this year, but before every contest at the area division levels, we have a dry run for that contest. And then we have the actual contest.
I have a question. I guess I'm trying to understand exactly what hybrid means outside of the club area. I mean, to me, when I think of hybrid, I think both in person and virtual. I mean, I guess maybe potentially I wasn't a part of any of the contests outside of my club during the pandemic. I mean, how is that actually for a hybrid? How will that work? Would it be all virtual, or would it be based on the area or division, what they decide to do? You know, does anyone know, can you answer that question?
District 11 has made a decision that for this year, all the contests will be hybrid. Now, that does not apply at the club level, but all the other higher levels must be hybrid. And that means they must set up a normal in-person room and give contestants the opportunity to be on site, and they must set up a online presence connected to that room so that the contestants that want to may participate online.
And if I can add a little background to this, Kara, at the beginning of this year, the International told us as a district for area, division, and district contests, we could choose either to be in all virtual or to be in hybrid form. And we could choose something different for the area division or district contest. We took that to the district elective council, and they voted on all hybrid for all three.
Okay.
Well, I will likely have that same choice next year.
Okay. No, I'm just trying to understand. It's great. I mean, I'm up for anything. I just want to make sure I thoroughly understand what we're doing.
Ruth, this is Sam Bristol again. I have another comment, especially for the air. Well, I guess for both air and division, you may want to consult with your clubs that are doing hybrid meetings now They're gonna be your experts to help you pull off your hybrid contests.
The club I'm a part of is Kentuckiana Women in Leadership, and we have hybrid meetings every single meeting. It's a lot of work up front, and we run into a different technical issue every single solitary meeting, every time. But we're getting much better at it. But if there's anything you do want for feedback, I'm sure that I or somebody else in our club would be more than happy to talk to you.
One of the things I've noticed belonging to 2 hybrid clubs is that it makes a big difference what your signal strength is. So one of the things contributing to more technical difficulties in one club is that we really don't have a very good signal. So thankfully, the club that's having no problem with signal is also going to be conducting the area contest. But you want to look at not just how well the club's running their meetings, but the technology around that club, because it gets worse as you get more participants.
Jean, I see your hand is up. You gotta ask your
Thank you.
comment or question.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. I have a sort of a general question regarding hybrid contest, because for the upcoming international and humorous speech contest, usually when we have virtual, we decide usually the speaking area is in your, whatever the monitor your camera is, and then with the in person, usually we have an area for speaking. With the hybrid meeting, how are we gonna define the speaking area? Would that tie to the technical, like we have to have the camera to be available to all the audiences? I don't know, any people have some ideas about this.
My idea is that whatever is your stage area for the virtual, the people looking up from online, that's your stage area. Because you could have a judge who's online. And if I think I have a different stage area because I have an in-person audience in front of me and I start going off here and doing something, obviously that judge does not see me at all. That's why I think you just have to stick to what is the virtual stage area. It also makes it fair between all the contestants.
All right. Marge, I see your hand is up.
Yes, hi, thank you, Sam. I'm Area 11 Director in Division A, preparing for area contest. And I have a question about judges. Should we get equal number virtual, equal number in person as on screen, or how does that work with judges? Is there a rule on that? Thank you.
There's no rule. It's kind of up to the contest chair. There's some mention in the handbooks that some contest chairs may prefer to have all judges in person because it's just easier to handle the ballot counting if any questions are arising, anything else, if they're all in person. But it's basically up to the contest chair. The other thing I noticed that was recommended for the hybrid or virtual meeting for that matter is obviously you do need to communicate between the contest functionaries. The suggestion on this is to have that not on the contest meeting. The suggestion is to establish that you're just going to send messages to each other on your iPhone or whatever, and just not have it in the contest meeting, because even if you think you have some way to isolate those, they're not going to necessarily be isolated.
Thank you.
Another interesting suggestion I was running across in the handbooks, but again, everything regarding the hybrid is called best practices. It's not a rule. So what they suggested was that you have one sergeant at arms for that sequestered room. And the sequestered room consists of your physical room and then a screen where you can monitor the virtual room, all in the same room. And in this way, you can assure the timing of the 5 minutes is identical for all the contestants, as well as the preparation of those contestants. We don't really have a good way to make sure, you know, they're not taking notes on some other thing than the form for taking notes. We don't have a good way to possess those notes until it's the speaker's turn to speak. But what I was hearing from the champion evaluators is they really don't care, because if there's this kind of a dependence on notes, likely the contestant will be trying again to become a champion.
Well, that seems to be about it for the discussions. You can feel free to put more questions in the chat if you want to, as we go into the second section of this particular presentation, but please join me first of all in applauding Ruth and thanking her for putting this together.
Thank you for the discussion.
And so let me make sure our next presenter is ready. Ruth, are you ready? Not Ruth, I'm sorry. Vanessa, are you ready? Vanessa, you're on mute.
I'm ready.
All right. Vanessa, probably none of you know her because she's not from our district. She's actually describes herself as a passionate and dedicated member of Bayes Toastmasters. Never heard of Bayes Toastmasters, anybody? That's because it's in United Kingdom. She's joining us from London today. They're part of District 91. So as part of this leadership training meeting, this event today, Vanessa is making an apology to mistakes within Toastmasters, reflecting on the perspective we should give when making mistakes. So please help me welcome Vanessa, apology to mistake.
The purpose of this session is really for me to go through and explain how we should shift our mindset considering mistakes for the welcome. So basically, the first section is about the mistakes when we speak, especially when we are meeting in clubs. I'm talking about, referring especially about the role of the grammarian. We should be mindful when listening to speakers doing table topics and giving prepared speeches. But why exactly do we cringe about when people make mistakes, when they stumble or where they pronounce a word incorrectly, or when they don't know how to qualify their thoughts? There's a different approach that we can consider. It could be that English is not their mother tongue, or it could be that they are dyslexic, or it could be that they are dropout from school. So essentially, there's so much from someone's background that we are unaware of. Also, another article I was reading was suggesting that when we are coming across as saying, as correcting someone, saying, oh, this is not the way you're supposed to say it, it's coming across as very presumptuous, and it's much more about how we thinking of being superior. So there's a way to encourage someone and correct someone without being presumptuous. This is just ideas for thoughts, really. The second thing is the mistakes when we are taking on committee roles. There are so many new or experienced Toastmasters members, even though experience doesn't mean anything for me, I'm just saying that, but so many members who are reluctant to taking on committee roles because they don't know what it's expecting from them. It's a big question mark when it comes to SA or VP or VPPR. It could be that they're afraid of making mistakes, but you think about it, how are you supposed to get familiar with the role if you're afraid of making mistakes? It's those mistakes that will teach you how to do it the next time. That's exactly how you shape the experience, because you're being confronted to your fears of mistakes and embracing them. So, because we're coming close to the end of Toastmasters year, and it's about renewals, and we have lots of club officers recruiting for the next officers list, I would say to really encourage members who are thinking about it to guide them and encourage them about these roles, and really remove any fear of mistakes that could be associated with this. Again, if you don't experience it, how are you supposed to get familiar with it? The last thing is the mistakes in society. Is it about me or is it about others? So when we are doing mistakes, what's our mindset? Do you think about whether you should apologize for it or not? Do you think about what you can learn from it or not? All of these questions are essential in order to really bounce back from the mistake we're making. So essentially, do you want to wallow in pity over the mistake you made, or do you want to learn from it and come back stronger than before? So the last thing I would like to mention is a reflective method that would help us understand problems and discover better solutions. It's what, so what, now what? What is really putting into a framework what happened and asking questions about what were the course of actions that led to that situation. So what is the consequences of that act of these mistakes? What was involved in it? What could be the emotional or the financial consequences of that? Now what is when you think about the possibilities? Could it be that you need to change a particular process, or do you need to change the mindset? Do you need to change the team around you? So if you have a particular example in mind that you would like to share during this session, I'd be happy to, I mean, we can all work out this particular problem using the what, so what, now what framework. Other than that, that's it for me. Any questions?
Why don't you give us a specific example of a mistake that you made and learned from?
I would say, really, when it comes to presenting in front of an audience, it's really not about presenting the perfect speech. It's not about giving to the audience what you're expecting them to see. It's mostly about being authentic. And that takes a lot of time to really get comfortable with this idea. It's about being imperfect, making mistakes, being human. It's can be intimidating, and you appear vulnerable in front of all of these eyes looking at you. But as you overcome this and you realize that it's okay to make mistakes, then it just gets easier.
Well, I'll give you all an example of what seemed to me at the time a very egregious mistake I made in this same area. I was speaking to a group of business leaders in Hong Kong. Now, this was before the reunification of Hong Kong, so it was in the 90s, a while ago, perhaps before many of you were born. But the idea was I was speaking to them about something new that IBM was doing. And someone asked me a question from the audience, a technical question, and my response was with an American idiom. I said, well, that's motherhood and apple pie. I looked out at the audience. Now, they all speak English because of the British influence there, but American idioms are something quite different. I looked out at the audience and their facial expressions were saying, what in the world is he talking about? And then when I realized that, I couldn't, on the spur of the moment, I couldn't address what was meant by motherhood and apple pie without saying another idiom, something like, well, that goes without saying. I finally was able to do it, and the people's reaction to what I did was much better than I thought it would be, because what they said was they appreciated the fact that I, first of all, understood I made a mistake in speaking, and then secondly, because I tried to recover from it. There's no way I could have expressed any of that in Chinese because I don't know any Chinese, and had to do it in English somehow. It's too bad I didn't really have a British background, because perhaps I could have explained with a better British idiom. But that's my mistake, and that comes back to me whenever I try to speak to a foreign audience and start to use an idiom that's American, something like, let's get down to brass tacks or something like that. I stop myself before I even express it. So I learned from that.
I wouldn't, if I may, wouldn't necessarily consider this a mistake, because it's you considered the audience, you watched their reaction, and you express the idiom another way. It's not as if you would just mention this idiom and just carry on with your presentation without even looking at your audience or even considering them, and just assumed they knew this idiom. So I think you had the right reaction, really. Is there anyone else who would like to share a particular story or something they experienced at their club?
I saw LaDonna's hand go up first. LaDonna, you want to go ahead and share your story?
Thank you, Sam. So my story is a combination of two speeches that I've done, and the evaluation of those really stick with me. One, I gave a speech, and because of my, what is referred to as my Southern Indiana slang, there are certain words and letters that I drop. Usually that happens when I'm in my comfort zone. So I'm very comfortable with my Toastmasters club, and I find myself in my speeches going back to that slang. For example, if I wanted to say any word that ended with ing, well, there's no G at the end. It's just boasting, running, macking, smashing. And I got caught on that. And so I have to be very aware in my speeches when I start feeling comfortable to get myself in check so that my language doesn't follow my comfort zone. Because a lot of the smack I talk, people wouldn't understand. So those two evaluations were like, yes, I got to write that down. So my suggestion, when you know you have a tendency to sway into an area you don't want to get into because you want to present in not necessarily sophisticated professional manner, but just that I want to be able to communicate with anybody and they would all understand what I'm saying. I would just write those notes down and make yourself very aware of how you're feeling when you start to get to that and just keep yourself in check. Not that you don't have enough other things on your mind when you're giving a speech to watch out for, but those are two of my biggest ones, my biggest hurdles. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing this. Thank you so much.
Jean, you want to go ahead and share?
I'm not sure if this is the purpose of this workshop, but thanks to Vanessa for bringing up this issue. Vanessa mentioned about like a wordmaster grammarian. I'm also English is not my primary language, mother tongue. So if when you serve as a wordmaster grammarian in the club meeting, you know, you want to help people to have better language skills, English skills. But how can we find the sweet spot to encourage, you know, those members to speak out? You know, even they probably don't have the perfect English, but they still need to speak. You know, but at the same time, you want to correct them, you know, so that they will speak better next time. So, what is the sweet spot? Anybody have any, you know, how to encourage them without the judgment? You know, I feel like the judgment is on the way a lot in our society. Thank you.
You mean judgment coming from the grammarian?
Yeah, regarding, you know, how when, for example, if you have a member that's English is second language, the English is so broken and into pieces, and probably the word pronunciation wasn't probably correct. You know, how can you encourage them without the judgment there?
I would say that this is just my opinion. I would say that if the members are part of Toastmasters, it's because they're already motivated. They could see that there are tremendous opportunities for growth. So that's a big win already. The motivation is there. In terms of speeches, we all have stories, and personally, my other language, French, just helped me shape the way I'm going to construct my stories, and I can bring the creativity of my other language into English and just play with words. There's so many ways we can explain a story and make it our own. And yeah, that's my take, really. Does anyone else have a view on this?
I think, Barbara, do you have something to add to this? You had your hand up. Do you have another?
I was just going to add, we start our meetings by first saying that we are a non-judgmental zone. There is no mistakes, there's just learning. And practice is learning. So it doesn't matter if what language you speak. And I am like the other one. I grew up out in the country, so some of my words, I don't have letters and I have to watch myself. But I think the main thing is just let them know it's constructive criticism or constructive evaluating. It's not criticism. It's just telling them things that will help them improve. And I always make sure I let them know we all was where they was at one time. If so, and we let them take their time when they feel free to talk. We don't say, okay, you want to give a speech, you want to talk. We let them feel comfortable on their own time at joining the conversation. And I think that making them feel more comfortable and letting them do it on their own time instead of pointing them out to talk helps. But yeah, I think the main thing is just let them know they're not being judged, that I still sometimes have ums and ands and stuff, and I've been doing it for 5 years. It's not hard to do because just what things going on that day, you just sometimes don't catch yourself. So you can have a good day, you can have a bad day, but just let them know it comes with time. Everybody was at the beginning stage at the beginning. So just do your best, and there's no wrong things to say. The point is that you're talking and you're trying. And as you try, the more you learn, and the easier it gets. That's all I had.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you. I couldn't have said it better. That's perfect. Maybe Elam wants to speak as well.
Yeah, I also have a suggestion about this matter. I think that's a very great question. By the way, my recommendation would be that if you notice someone from a different country is making, let's say, 10 or 11 particular grammatical mistakes every single time, you could probably just draw to their attention only 3 of those mistakes to start off with, instead of listing every single mistake the person is making, because they can't even make a change or correction to all those mistakes over a short period of time. So my recommendation would be make a few suggestions, let a couple of months go by, monitor how the person is progressing, then you bring out another set of suggestions or recommendations on how they can improve. And I feel that would take away some of the perceived judgment or prevents them from feeling discouraged.
I would also point out, I mean, the mistakes where this is a broader topic, but because we're talking about the grammarian, may I also remind that English speakers as well struggle with English language, and we just acknowledge this fact as well. Kara, you wanted to talk?
Yes. One thing that we do, we try really hard in our group we don't believe in negative criticism at all. We don't even capture the term criticism because we're not really there to criticize each other. We are only there to help each other improve. So whenever we give an evaluation to try to help correct someone's behavior, like during a presentation, basically we phrase it, we of course Toastmasters teaches us to use the sandwich approach, but we do a good, better, best, what you did well, what you could do better the next time, and then what you did best. But we always phrase it that way. And I know a lot of times newer members come in and they don't really understand, even with the slips of paper that we pass around for feedback for each other, we've had it a couple of times where newer members might not understand and then send a note that is a little bit negative. And what we've done is we'll just use those moments. We never call that person out or single anyone out, not once, not ever. But what we do is we just kind of, maybe the next meeting, we will just make a reminder that, hey, we're really here to see each other improve. And, whenever you write the feedback slips, let's make sure, just we try to keep it in such a positive tone, because you don't want to unintentionally, just unintentionally offend someone or hurt someone's feelings. I view Toastmasters as a very safe and protected environment for people to grow and help each other grow. So.
You actually, thank you, Kara. You reminded me of something I also would like to emphasize again in terms of committee roles and taking on meeting roles at club meetings. Encourage people to take on different roles and not always the same, because there's always this fear of mistakes or not handling the meeting role correctly. Could it be a Toastmaster of the Day, a grammarian, a counter? But it's by doing this role and making mistakes that you're learning how to be comfortable with these roles. So it's okay if you're talking about evaluations. Maybe your first evaluation would be crappy. Who cares? You move from there, you move on, you learn from it, and your second evaluation would be less crappy. And your third evaluation would be even less crappy, and so forth and so on. So that's the attitude that we should have as Toastmasters members, in my opinion. Are there any other comments or questions?
I would like to point out a very good comment from Angela in the chat. So if you've not read their chat messages, she had a very profound comment.
Well, just read it for us.
Okay,
Sam.
okay. Oh, okay. All right, I'll read it. She said, I'm so sorry that you feel that judgment. I've studied French, Chinese, Vietnamese, Spanish, Vietnamese and Spanish language. And as a native English speaker, my accent is terrible in those other languages that I learned. I think for a person to have judgment, they must be people who have not tried to learn another language.
Thank you for this. Thank you. Are there
Just
any
like
other comments or
I just want to
questions?
make a comment on what that message was that Sam read. Ellen, who spoke before, is in the same club I am. We have more people in our club that are English as a second language than we do as English as the first language. And sometimes English is the third or fourth language that is spoken. And to tell you the truth, I hate the role of grammarian, because in the classical picture, you're just giving an ah counter, and assuming your ah counter is combined with grammarian, and it's hard to say anything. But when I have those roles, I found it gives me some benefit, and I think benefit to the rest of the membership, to find always, you can't say someone had 17 ahs without telling them they had something that you really enjoyed about the wording in their speech, phraseology or something like that. So if we can really treat that grammarian role just like we would an evaluation role, I think it actually helps me to hate the role less.
I mean, at the end of the day, all meeting roles are performed by human beings. So sometimes you're going to get a great grammarian report. Sometimes you're going to get an average grammarian report. Sometimes you're going to get a great evaluation report. And sometimes it's just going to be nah. And it's fine because we are learning. I don't know who said that at the beginning. It's a non-judgmental environment. We're all learning. So yeah, who cares at the end of the day? That's my take. That's my take. Maybe Elam, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I have another comment I want to make. I'm not sure if this point has already been made or not, but to again help with avoiding a situation where someone feels like they are being judged, you want to make sure you're doing everything that you can to cultivate that encouraging or motivating environments that Toastmasters clubs are known to have or should have. Recently, we had a guest attend a club who told us that the way we clapped for everyone after they spoke made him very comfortable and made him, what's the word I'm looking for? Made him comfortable and made him confident to participate in table topics, even as a guest. For us, we've gotten into the habit of clapping out of routine without realizing the power behind it. And so that was a very great reminder for us to continue doing these little things that really cultivate an encouraging environment, even if it might appear it's not making a difference.
That is so true what you said. We're taking things for granted. And yeah, that's a powerful feedback. Thank you, Ellen, for saying this. Remind ourselves that it's a great feeling when you're being encouraged. I agree with that. Maybe the last question for Barbara.
Yeah, I was just gonna say another way of making them feel comfortable. Have different table topics to make it more casual and not, because sometimes they see real serious speeches going on and they are afraid to speak because it puts them off thinking, oh, I can't speak that well. We sometimes show crazy pictures in table topics and you got to just make up a story of what's going on with that picture or what you think it is, or like ancient tools, and you got to try to figure out what that tool is. And you wouldn't, I mean, you get a laugh and everybody starts laughing, and it makes it a lot easier. And I mean, a lot of people, if I see they're giving a lot of serious speeches, usually when I do table topics, I always do a humorous one, just so people see you don't have to be all prim and proper and say eloquent speech. You can do a humorous speech and you can still have the same speech as you would the other ones, as your filler words and stuff like that. It's the same in no matter what kind of speech you give. So I think kind of mixing it up so they don't see you have to give a serious speech. You can give any kind of speech. The main thing is just talking.
Exactly.
So
that would be the main key takeaway from this session. The main thing is about talking. Barbara, thank you for this session. And I hand it back to the Toastmaster.
Well, thank you for this session. Let's everyone give her a hand, from traveling all the way from the United Kingdom by Wi-Fi. And I want to thank all of you for attending, bringing this meeting to an end now. You will all get club credit for attending for your club officer training requirements. Thank you for coming and have a good day, everybody.
Please make